Listen, please like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel.
All my praises 'cause he died for you and me.
Awareness to domestic violence. You don't want to miss it, so tune in every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. on Facebook. Let's talk.
And that's why I keep praising him 'cause
Let's talk.
he's so amazing. Yes, he's amazing. All my praises 'cause he died for you.
Listen, please like, subscribe, and share our
Got
YouTube
somebody
channel.
I want y'all to meet tonight. Y'all, it's like hot up here. For this time of year. It's really like, right now it's probably like 65 degrees outside. So it's like warm in my house. And it's like, so if I'm sweating a little bit, don't mind me. Hey, Thomasina. Y'all tag some friends. Share the video if you don't mind. If you haven't done so yet, go to my YouTube channel, WarriorShe Room, on YouTube, and subscribe and like and share, and you can find all of the old video, all of the past interview segments on there. So I've got, hey Tawanda, hey Lane, I've got an amazing guest coming on tonight. Hey Charlene. He is a domestic violence advocate. Hi Juanita. He is a domestic violence advocate. Now get this. He said something to me that I didn't even know existed. He is a victim of financial abuse in a previous relationship, which to me is a form of domestic violence without the actual hitting. And it could also be a form of emotional abuse as well. And he's going to come on and tell us about that. He's going to tell us what made him become a domestic violence advocate. He also, he's got some pretty good things going on. He's down in North Carolina. A group of us were talking about the types of abuse, and this came up. Yeah, Denise, I had never heard of anyone say that they were a victim of financial abuse. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. So he told me a little bit about it, and I'm not going to tell his journey for him. I'm just waiting for him to come in. Hey, Cookie. Hey, Felicia. I'm just waiting for him to come in. When I see him in here, then I can. His name is Dewayne Hinnant. Dewayne Hinnant. He is, like I said, out of, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's, hey Dwayne, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Raleigh, North Carolina, but he'll straighten that out for us. So he is on the live now. So let me see if I can get him in here. Okay, Dwayne, I just sent you an invite. He's from Durham, North Carolina. Hi, Mary. Dwayne, I just sent you an invite to join me. If you'll accept the invite. And that way you can come on in with me. I just sent it to you. So once he accepts that invite that I just sent him, he's going to come in with me. Hey, Felicia. Good to see you guys tonight. Dwayne, do you see the invite that I sent you? You guys given a little time, be patient. And listen, I want y'all to show him lots and lots of love. Show him some love, send him some hearts. Y'all know how we do. Tell him, hey, Dwayne. Make him feel at home. Let him know we're cool here. We're chill folks. I tell people all the time, y'all my peoples. For those of you who are on here for the very first time, let me introduce. You're looking for it, Dwayne? Okay. All right. If you go where in your little, I can't send it again. Once I've sent it, I can't send it again. I'm trying to tell you where to go. Are you on your phone, Dwayne? Or are you on your laptop? Right at the bottom, should be in where the comment section is. You should see a little, it might be a little red. It's probably red now. Denise, if you're still on here, can you tell Dwayne where to go to answer that invite I sent him? Because you were here last week, so I know you know where it is. Hold on, Dwayne. I'm trying to get my girl to tell you exactly where to go to accept the invite. You should see some little people. You're on your laptop. Okay. I don't know where to tell you to go on your laptop. But you still should be able, in the comment section. In the comment section, it should pop up. Denise is saying it should pop up on your screen. You accept it. Or you can see where you can request on your screen. Dwayne, you should have got a pop-up. You may have to scroll up and down, she said, in the comment section to see it. It's in the comment section, Dwayne. The invite. Thank y'all for being patient with us. So give him a few so he can figure out how to answer this invite. But to those of you who this is your first time on with us, I am WarriorShe. I am a domestic violence survivor. This is a platform that God allowed me to have to bring awareness to domestic violence. A lot of my guests, I have guests come on of all walks of life. They've survived domestic violence. Hey Sharon, they survived cancer, in the middle of cancer. Dwayne, can you see the invite yet that I sent you? There he is. He's sending me a request. So trying to come in, guys. It's saying adding. So, but this is like I was saying before, this is a platform. There he is. Dwayne, you're dark. You're in the dark. Hey.
Am I?
You're good now. Oh, you're good. Perfect.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can
Can you
hear
hear me?
you. I can hear you, but I have echoing, and because I have you on my laptop and my cell phone, and I have my headphones connected to both of them.
Okay, you're gonna have to take one off. You're gonna have to come out of one of them. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. Give me one.
Okay.
Yes. What about now? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Okay. Hold
What about
on
you?
real quick. Let me add this on.
Okay.
Okay, what about now?
That's perfect. I can hear you great. That's perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Blessed. No need complaining.
That's the best
There's
way
so
to
many
be.
people worse off. Yeah. Ain't no need complaining. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today.
It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here. You got a delay back there, don't you?
I do. I have somewhat of a delay.
Yeah, I can hear it. It's okay. I was just telling my people um you told me something when we were talking that kind of like was the first time I've ever heard it, that you are a victim of financial abuse.
Yeah, through a previous relationship, I experienced financial abuse. I had my story is normally I tell everybody this is the first thing I tell is that I've been married 4 times, and
Okay.
four of those marriages, previously their exes um, had abused them. So um,
Oh
my
wow.
story is that um, the 4 marriages they had experienced domestic violence before I even knew what domestic violence was. And those the experiences that they weren't healed from contribute to the demise. Well, 3 of the marriages, those domestic violence experience contributed to the demise of our marriage.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah, it was a eye-opening experience, and actually promoted me to being an advocate. Whenever you sometimes whenever you have a bad run of relationships and stuff like that, you do self inventory and find out, what actually went wrong, what actually happened in the relationship. So I did self inventory, took some time off from dating and trying to um, uh, date again and be out in the dating scene. Then I just started, looking back on, all the relationships that I had and the marriages I had and see actually what went wrong. Like I said, that thing just kept coming back up again. That it was, that was a contributing factor to it. It was the most common factor in all of
Wow. So you've been married 4 times,
it.
and all four of the women were victims of domestic violence.
Yeah, the national, the national average is 1 out of 4 women experience domestic violence or have been in a domestic violence relationship. Just that every marriage that I had, it was the 4.
Wow. Wow. So, like I told you before, I don't do a whole lot of asking questions. I like to have a dialogue with my guests, but I like I like you guys to just tell your journey. And I know that you're not a typical physical domestic violence survivor. But to me, financial abuse is emotional abuse.
It is.
And I may be wrong because this is the first time, your story is the first time I've heard someone say, I'm a victim of financial abuse. But to me, that means emotional abuse, which is a form of domestic violence.
Well, because it goes,
Am I right?
it's financial abuse is a tactic that an abuser will use to try and keep a survivor or a victim there. So
Yeah.
like I said, my journey or my experience with the financial abuse is that, we're going through a break. Excuse me. We're going through a breakup or a break, and we needed some time apart. We need some time apart. I am a person that normally lives off of about $20 a day. So I don't need much to survive off of. A meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So our bank accounts were joined. So even though I was out of the house, my paycheck was still coming to our joint bank account that I didn't have access to. So the money that was going in was the money that I had going in for my paycheck was going out, and I had no access to it. So I couldn't, even though I lived in the house and had access, supposed to have access to it, you know, um, I didn't have anywhere to live. I couldn't, I actually couldn't live off of $20 a day because I had to have, housing because the break was supposed to be, you know, just a time apart. But she kept,
Yes.
taking, what money I had and what money that I worked for and using it for her own personal expense. Now, like I said, I didn't have access to it. And I was deceived that we were on a break. We weren't on a break. She was actually doing the breakup. I actually called for the break because I thought that, maybe if we had some time apart, it would be better. But she actually was doing, something, where she was getting me totally out of the house, didn't want me to come back to the house, even though I had clothes there, even though I had furniture there and stuff like that, and didn't want me to have any access to the house. So after a while, it was just like, you know what? I was like, I don't have access to a house. I don't have access to my things. I don't have access to you. I'm not married anymore. So it was a time where it was like, okay, well, let me go and get my stuff. And it became a whole big, commotion about, what stuff I was trying to take, which it wasn't much stuff that I was trying to take because you can have it. You can have whatever things that you think that you want or what things you think we had together. I mean, we even had a car that we purchased together. I wasn't even taking that or wanting any money in return in for it. I wanted to be out of the relationship totally, but she
Right.
she wanted out of the relationship, but she wanted to kick me while I was coming out of the relationship. So uh, that was a case of me taking my stuff and us arguing about what stuff we're gonna take. She called the police, try to have me arrested. But me being an advocate and me knowing, what the law is, I was like, you know, are you arresting me? Why are you detaining me? I mean, I'm coming to get my stuff. There's no fighting. There's no fussing. I was like, there's no physical abuse. You can ask yourself. And then I had three. Like I said, I came there with three witnesses. There was three witnesses there, so it wasn't a he said, she said. It was the other people that was there too that saw what was going on.
Right.
So after that, like I said, I took me a while. It took me a while to figure out what it was. It took me, when I started writing my book, the ripple effect, the lasting effects of domestic violence, and I looked up what all kinds of abuse there was, and there was financial abuse. And one that actually struck me that I didn't know about was spiritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Now that one was a new one to me. But after you look at the whole definition of what spiritual abuse is and stuff like that, and it does go on because the ex that I actually broke up with had experienced spiritual abuse with her ex. It was a family church. They had owned the church and been in the church and had been in power. her husband, her ex-husband that she was married to, he was the minister of music. He ran her name through the ground, used the Bible to keep her there and stuff like that. Used, different scriptures. The man is supposed to be the head of the house and stuff like that. And so like I said, she was a survivor of domestic violence, but she wasn't healed from it. She wasn't healed from it enough to where she could jump back into another relationship.
Wow. Yeah. Um, spiritual abuse is real.
It is.
That's so real. Um, and it's even more. I've seen more of it. I think I've seen more of it in this past 4 to 5 years. Maybe because I'm paying more attention
Yeah.
now, but I've seen more of it in this 4 to 5 years than I ever have. I think spiritual abuse is more dangerous than any other abuse.
It is.
Um,
Versus physical abuse, it is, because it is an indoctrination of religion, and your religion is used to hold you or oppress you. Um,
yeah,
the religious part of it, they take scriptures from out of the Bible, the same scriptures: man's supposed to be the head of the household, the woman this, that, and they use it because of what the Bible says. And I look at other scriptures too, just like, or a scripture that says, you're supposed to love you're supposed to love yourself like you do your wife. So there's some scriptures
hmm
they skip over when they talk about, being in marriage and stuff like that. So those are scriptures that they don't talk about or highlight it enough when they talk about a relationship. And what you're doing when you have a pastor or have a church leader that's involved in it and says those scriptures, you know, he's actually keeping you in a toxic relationship.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah. So,
absolutely,
yeah. So whenever you have a pastor or a church leader that's that involved into your marriage and stuff like that, one of the lines in my book is that, you know, a church leader isn't there to, save your marriage. He's there to save souls. So regardless if the marriage works or fails, he has two souls that he's trying to save. So if he's not interested in saving both, you need to find you a new church.
that's true, that's true. Keep talking. Hold on 1 second. Keep on
Sure.
talking, Dwayne.
Oh yeah. Uh,
I'm
Doing the
working.
research for my book, I found, a lot of different abuses, a lot of different tactics that a lot of people use. I had heard of gaslighting before, but I had never heard exactly what the definition is. And actually, like I said, once I started writing the book, I started noticing, different signs and different tactics that people were using, families, close friends of mine and families. I started, once you start doing the research and doing the work, you start noticing other people's relationships. You notice, how different they are from what you
hmm
think, or seeing that, what tactics that they're using. I look at a toxic relationship as, the grounds of the breeding ground for a domestic violence or abusive relationship, because you're talking about how bad your communication is in your relationship. Communication is bad in your relationship. You don't know how to communicate with your partner. Your partner doesn't know how to. You're using things to hold over your partner. Using money, using education, using like I said, spiritual abuse, using all kind of things to give you a leg up in your relationship. When in actuality, a relationship is supposed to be an equal partner, an equal footing. You're not supposed to have one that's supposed to be, above you, or act as though that one is above you. So, like I said, the toxic relationship is the breeding ground for, abusive relationship. And, once I started, looking at toxic relationships, and then I started looking at, different, people in my life, and I was just like, boyfriend's not kind of a nice guy, or your husband's not kind of a nice guy. Um, you probably need to, leave. Does this seem normal to you? Does this seem normal to you? Does a roller coaster in a relationship seem normal to you? So, you start,
Yes.
thinking about that. Is a roller coaster in a relationship normal to you? And then you have to think about, what have they seen in their life? What have they experienced in their life? Have they actually experienced a roller coaster and previously from parents or from someone else? Because, you get your first experience of what a relationship is from your parents.
Hmm.
So you look at your parents' lifestyle and see, it was their toxic relationship within them. And you look at their attributes and some of their, things that they have and stuff like that. Because, like I said, I've never experienced domestic violence. I came into it as a novice. um, Came from a two-parent family home. I had three sisters. Two of them were married. I had one brother who was married, and I had never seen domestic violence. Once I got,
Right.
um, to working for the city of Durham and working in the domestic violence task force, which I was a chair of, and I started, seeing what it was, what all domestic violence was, and saw how horrible it was to not just those two people in their relationship, but it actually does damage to your community.
Yeah.
So that made me, want to
Absolutely.
be, yeah, that made me want to be more involved in it because I take community, advocacy, serious, especially here where I am, where, Durham is kind of like, not size wise, but, culture wise, it's probably about 85 or 76%, African American. Um, so you have a lot of, black and brown people that's here and stuff like that. And it started growing. Domestic violence was an issue that kept growing and growing and growing. And I was just like, wow, this is kind of bad. It became an everyday thing where I would read in the newspaper, where I would see on TV, where I would look on the internet. Now I see that, there was a case of domestic violence that was going on. And I was just like, some of these cases, where ending in fatalities, where you have a person that would kill their partner, then that person goes to jail, the partner is dead, then you have an orphan. So then you start looking at what effects does domestic violence have on children. You know,
Right. Yeah. I'm always fascinated when somebody who has not um, experienced physical domestic violence abuse becomes an advocate because there's so many people that turn away.
yeah, and
You know, they they
what's the
turn it
bad
they
thing
turn
about
it
that
back.
too. What's the bad thing about that too is that
Hmm.
some of the people that turn away
What?
are people that have experienced domestic violence.
Wow, that's like 100% true.
Because
That's like 100% true.
true, it is because because you've lived it, you survived it, but you don't acknowledge it, or you haven't acknowledged that you went through it, or you continue the toxic relationship part of it. It continues because a lot of people get back into a domestic violence relationship after they left another one because it feels familiar to them. So when
I
you have
heard
somebody,
one lady say to me,
mm-hmm,
I heard this lady say to me some years ago, she was an older lady, and her husband had abused her for many years. Most of their marriage, he was physically abusive.
mm-hmm,
And as they got older, he stopped being physically abusive, but he was mentally abusive and verbally abusive. And she said to me, I asked her, why did you stay all of these years? Because they had been together and married like 40 years. And I said, why did you stay with this man all of these years through this abuse? And she said, well, baby, she said, he don't hit me no more. He just be talking. He just be talking. But I was like, even though he stopped the physical abuse as they got older, he was still verbally, very verbally abusive to her. And it was like a way of life for her. I mean, it was like a norm for her. She was like, where am I going now? And I thought that was the saddest, saddest thing to hear.
It
You
is.
know, yeah, it was just like it became like a way of life for her, the norm. And like me, I'm like you. I came from a two family home, you know, born and raised in the church all of our life, singing in the choir, everything, the whole 9 yards. So for a long time, even after I was out of domestic violence, I didn't know that it had a name. All I knew is this man used to fight me, and I know that's not right. That's not the norm because I never saw it. You know, I've seen my parents when we were younger argue one time, and we thought they were getting a divorce because they had an argument. You know, so now here I am, 19 years old, and I'm married in a domestic violence situation. And it was years later. It was actually probably about 15 years, maybe 18 years ago, that I realized what I had been through had a name called domestic violence. You
Yeah,
know,
and that's the
I,
reason
I didn't
why
know what it
I
was.
advocate. Yeah, that's the reason why I advocate is because to bring education and awareness. Like I said, the people that have been through domestic violence, especially I'm in my early 40s. Um, they probably didn't give it a name. It probably was just just a regular marriage. Um, before now that you see the end result of, because like I said, I knew parents and stuff like that throughout my community that had toxic relationships, and there were men that would in the neighborhood or throughout the neighborhood that would that was known for hitting his wife, or they got into a fight and stuff like that. But I never had anybody that would I never had a murder or someone that was killed. Now it's escalated. And what you think now about what domestic violence is, it is escalating. It does escalate, no matter if it starts as just verbal or mental or spiritual. It always escalates um, to the point of abuse. And just because someone stops hitting you doesn't mean they're not going to hit you anymore. It just means that that's part of the psychological or the mental abuse that they're playing with you.
Right.
It's part of a game. It's part of a game to them. I mean, they're going to take you through, like I said, the roller coasters. They're going to take you through the highs and the lows and ups and the downs. And if I choose to stop hitting you and stuff like this, is because I'm being good to you. Well, you stop hitting me doesn't mean that you're being good to me. You never hitting me should mean that you're good to me.
Oh, no doubt. I tell people all the time, it's a mind game and it's a game of control.
It
If
is.
if and that's where the mental abuse come from. Because if they can get your mind, if they can beat you down so much verbally and mentally, where they can get control of your mind, the body's gonna follow. So all of this, you ain't all of that, or nobody else wants you, you know, or all of the very negative and hurtful things that they say to try to mentally beat you down is a part of what abusers do to control the mind.
Yeah. Once you have
And that's
control of
why
the
so many people don't leave. Uh-huh.
yeah once you have control of the mind, I look at it as far as the abuse part is easier. Once they have
Oh,
control
yeah.
of that, once that the normalcy is me verbally abusing you and telling you and belittling you, then the abuse is only a step. Is only a step away. Um, I look at things like tactics like You go through the honeymoon stage, which is the honeymoon stage. You take it all the way through. Is like, you have the good part where everything is all hunky dory and buttercups and stuff like that. Then you go through, the verbal, the mental, and then you get to the damaging of property and stuff like that, and then you get to you know the full on physical abuse, and then it comes back to where I'm sorry, the flowers, the apologies and stuff like that.
Hmm. And if you hadn't said this, then I wouldn't have hit you.
Right,
Or
right.
if you'd have just
It's
done what I
always
told you to do.
it's never their fault. They love to put blame back on
Never.
the abused.
Yeah. It's never, it is never, ever, ever their fault. Everything that they've done is justified to them
Right.
because if you hadn't touched my phone, then I wouldn't have done what I've done. If you'd have just done what I told you to do, if you'd have just shut up like I told you to shut up, then this never would have happened. It's never their fault. Everything and I tell people all the time, until he acknowledges that what he's done is wrong and that there is a problem, he's going to keep doing what he's doing because it's never his fault. If
And
you'd have just shut up, then I wouldn't have hit you.
even if he does acknowledge it, and which I tell when I talk to people about abuse, I don't. My belief is that once an abuse happens, that guy or that person can't operate within that relationship anymore. They can't operate within that relationship anymore because number one, you violated that person. You violate that person. The person is never going to trust you again the way that they trusted you before. So it's a dead relationship. You're gonna have mistrust, and then you're gonna have the counter, which is you never trust me, or you always don't believe me and stuff like that. So it's always gonna be the mistrust and the guy that you think that you can trust, and also too that's acknowledging that it's been done is a way to get you back. So I tell people, once you've been violated, don't go back to that relationship. Don't go back to that relationship. You can accept
Yeah,
this apology.
absolutely.
You can accept this apology and move on, but that's about the gist of it.
Yeah, that I agree with that. I agree with that. But we know that that's not normally what happens. They
Mhm.
they always go back at least once or twice. We go back
Well, the
because
average is it
I'm
takes it
speaking for
takes seven
me.
times
I,
for a
I
woman to leave before she's completely gone.
well, it took me. I left for almost not quite a year. I went back after. I think it was probably about 10 months. I went back, and 2 weeks later, I was filing for a divorce. I had only left once, and I left for that 10 months or so. And after going back, 2 weeks later, I was filing for my divorce. But I know some women that has actually gone back 7, 8, 9 times. Bef- I mean, like gone back and had 2 or 3 children in the going back phase
Hmm.
of it. And a lot of women feel like, um, well, I have children by him. I want both of my all of my kids, to have both their parents in the house. You know, that's never a reason to stay. That's never a reason to go back. But it's like a going back, going back, going back, going back situation for most women.
And
For
that's the
most
that's the
women.
part that's the part of the toxic relationship, you know, time to actually get over that person, but it's time away from that person. It's time for self-reflection of what your relationship was, and who your partner is. It That's why when I go out and I advocate and I talk about relationships, I talk about that part of the relationship. Does this seem normal to you? If someone beating on you seems normal to you, you're wrong. That's not what's supposed to go into a relationship. You have a warped sense of what a relationship is. The fighting, the fussing, the cheating. Does that seem normal to you? If it is, you have a warped sense of what a relationship is. And you need to educate yourself on what a relationship is supposed to be and how somebody's supposed to operate within a relationship. And I know people have ups and downs and, different kind of, problems that they go through a relationship or what they say a relationship is. And it's different. It's different for everybody. But I can tell you what's not supposed to happen. Man isn't supposed to beat you, or a woman isn't supposed to beat you.
That's right.
So if you have to fight,
Absolutely.
if your relationship is hurting you, then you need to leave. Not just physically hurting you. If it's hurting you mentally, if it's hurting you spiritually, you need to leave.
That's profound and true. Yeah, that's serial cheating to me is domestic violence. Serial cheating is a form of domestic violence. Um, you have some men and women who feel like because they're just cheating with multiple women that um, that's all it is. But I call it serial cheating when somebody is cheating with two or three different women or two or three different men, and the cheating is a constant thing that they it's a norm for them. That to me, that's a form of domestic violence because with the cheating always come the lying and the manipulating
True.
and the mind control, and all of that is a part of what domestic violence abusers do. And a lot of women and men don't even realize when they're married to or in a relationship with someone who's a serial cheater, they are in a domestic violence situation, and that's a very unhealthy place to be. Mentally, physically, spiritually, that's a very unhealthy place to be.
It is because from an abuser, serial cheating from an abuser, it means you're not in a committed relationship. It means, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you, he doesn't care about your feelings at all. So you have somebody that operates in that type of relationship that has no care, and especially my wife now, um, uh, who is a survivor of domestic violence herself, she always tell me, she would always say is that whenever you have some women will take you back, whenever you're cheating, but once you embarrass them, it's hard for them to take you back. And a man that cheats on you and not only just cheats on you but also embarrasses you cares nothing for your feelings. He cares
Nothing.
nothing for your feelings, nothing how you feel or how he made you feel.
Hmm.
When the cheating becomes that public and everybody knows and everybody in your community knows and stuff like that, and social media just doesn't go to your section, your circle. It goes to everybody. You could take a post and it can go out to 2,000 people or 200 people and stuff like that. So whenever they do that, whenever that kind of cheating happens, you're embarrassed more than what you normally are, than just your neighbors knowing what's going on.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's someone and I were today were just talking about there are so many different phases and forms of domestic violence. Um, we just most people just don't call it by that name, but it is domestic violence, and it's so. That's why when you said that you were a survivor of financial, um, I was like, okay, I've never heard anybody put it that way, and that's usually a part of what abusers do. Even when when you're leading up to the physical and the verbal and the emotional abuse, I just never heard anybody say that they were a survivor of financial abuse.
Because you think about the
But
power control part of it. That's under the
absolutely,
power and control part of it. So if they control the purse string,
hmm
they you can't leave. And when I talk to survivors and stuff like that, one of the things that keeps them there is that they can't leave because they don't have anywhere to go because they don't have money for
right.
housing and stuff like that. And then two, one of the tactics that abusers use is that they'll put either all the bills in their name or run up a bill in your name to where you can't get the housing or utilities. So if you can't get housing or utilities, you're
hmm
not going to leave. You have nowhere else to go. So you're going to have to stay here and take this abuse.
Yeah, I was um I was one of the lucky ones. I had when I was ready to move, I had somewhere to go. My parents were available to me. But there's so many people. I hear people say all the time. I just heard somebody say last week about this young lady who they knew was in a situation, and they was like, but she keep going back. She must like what she's going through. Why does she stay if he's treating her that way? And people don't understand. Some people don't have a safe place to run to.
No.
I tell people all the time, I was a blessed somebody when I was really tired and I was at that point where I was planning his demise because I had made up in my mind I was going to kill him. My parents came to my rescue and I had somewhere to go. I didn't have to worry about me and my girls being on the street, not having a safe haven. I had a safe haven in my mother and my father and my auntie. I could go. A lot of victims don't have that. They don't have any place that they can run to. So it's easy for those looking in from the outside to say she must like it, or why did you stay, or what took you so long to leave. A lot of people that are in that situation don't have any place to go.
Yeah. They don't have a lot of places to go, and that's why, we advocate. We advocate more for, resources. We advocate more for funding. We advocate more for um, domestic violence shelters because where I'm from now, there's only one for the whole county. Where I used to live at, which is a county that has over 100 cities or 100 towns. There's two. It's two domestic violence shelters.
Mm,
So,
wow.
we advocate because we see that, that's one of the issues. That's one of the issues that keep, survivors or victims in a place in a holding what I call a holding pattern. It's like, what am I going to do? This
hmm
man is abusing me. This man is abusing me. I have nowhere to go, and I can't leave. I can't just have my children out on the street and not have anywhere to go. So, you know, I tell a lot of people because they just don't know, and it's not that the house, the shelter isn't accessible. Is that they don't know. They don't know that there's a shelter that's available to them.
But to me, and I've been speaking on this a lot in this last couple of years, and I'm talking about the Black community because that's where I am and that's where I come from.
Right.
Um, our Black church is supposed to step up. Our Black churches. I was asking some a couple of pastors, and my brother is a pastor in South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and he and I haven't had a conversation maybe about 3 years ago, and I said to him, "Who do you have in place in your church um, as a domestic violence advocate?" I said, because I know there's some people in your church, even if you don't know about it, there's some women in your church that is experiencing domestic violence. Who can she go to when she needs to get out? Who can she go to in confidence in your church that's going to be that safe haven for her? And I talked to another pastor there, and there was no one. There's no one available other than going to the pastor. And 9 times out of 10, the pastor wants to meet with both parties,
Mm-hmm.
the abuser and the victim, which is never a good thing to do. Um, but our Black churches really, really, really have to stand up and step up. Our Black churches need to be a safe haven in our community for these domestic violence victims. We should never have to run to any place outside of our community to find safety when we got Black churches on every corner, almost in every city. Our Black churches, and I've been speaking this thing for about 2 or 3 years. They have to step up and be that safe haven in our community for our victims.
You know why it's not active, right?
Because most of them in the church, most of the pastors and the ministers in church are abusers themselves.
Yes. A lot of leaders are abusers or condone. Let me not say condone.
They condone the abusing. They condone
No,
the
let me say
abusing.
not condone.
They're
Let me try to clean it up a little bit. Let me say that don't they don't see abuse as especially between a husband and a wife as a moral sin.
but
Um,
it is.
it is a moral sin. It
It
is
is
a
a more
moral
sin.
sin. But you see, like I said, you see pastors that use scriptures and stuff that use scriptures to oppress women, oppress their wives and stuff. So it's passed down from who they were taught from and who they're teaching to now, and it's like if I say something about this abuse, what is it going to say about me that I was an abuser or that I knew that the person that taught me was an abuser. So it's
But
like
some of that cycle has to be broken somewhere.
it does
Somebody
have
has
to be
to break
broke.
the
It does have
cycle.
to be broken. It does have to be broken. And once again, that's why we advocate. We advocate to bring awareness and education. So if and like I said, when it comes to churches, you have some of the old guards who've been, pastoring for 30, 40 years. They're in their late 50s, 60s, and 70s now. So you educate them. You educate them on what domestic violence is, on how it's wrong, and then two, you make it make sense to them. The only way it makes sense to them if you can find it in the Bible. which is not hard.
Exactly, and it's not.
Which is not hard because it's in the Bible. But those are scriptures that
Oh
they
yeah,
just they just sweep under the rug or don't like to highlight at certain times. Because I tell anybody this:
but
if your church
abusing
isn't
your
doing outreach for domestic violence, what are you there for?
exactly.
Why are you there? If your church doesn't have someone that's educated for domestic violence, what are you there for? That's not the church for you. And then think about it. October is what? Domestic violence awareness. How often does your church do something for domestic violence awareness? They'll do something for cancer awareness, but how often do
Mm-hmm.
they do anything for domestic violence awareness?
Yep. Yeah. And you know what? And when I think about it, I know of some churches that they actually kind of make it often thing that they talk about awareness and they honor cancer survivors, and which is always an amazing thing. You know, bringing awareness to any disease that harms and kills. But I was talking to somebody probably about not even a year ago, and why isn't it that our cities and our churches are not bringing as much awareness to domestic violence as they are to cancer, breast cancer, diabetes, all of these other life-threatening illnesses? When domestic violence is taking out babies, people not just beating the women up no more, or the woman beating her boyfriend up. They're murdering now. They're murdering the babies. The girlfriend is murdering the boyfriend baby because the little 3-year old is in her way, or she don't like the baby's mother, and all this kind of stuff. We're losing lives daily to domestic violence.
One of the most
Why are we not constantly speaking about domestic violence? Why are our pastors not why are our pastors not in the pulpit speaking against domestic violence? That's what I don't understand.
because, like I said, it's something that they're not trained to do. They're not trained to, number one, and then two, it's like you said, it's a cycle that has to be broken. Their pastor didn't know anything about it, so they didn't teach anything about it. But they also taught, but like I said, they taught the other scriptures in the Bible that that chose to highlight oppression and stuff like that. That keeps women staying in abusive and toxic relationships. They'll use that. One of the most
Right.
one of the most highlighting things that I saw as far as doing research for my book was I did a digital vigil where I got the names of the victims, the people that died from domestic violence, and I looked them up. Looked them up, put them on a digital chart. I ran across a list, had age, how they died, um, and their names. And one of the names I came across was, a 4-month-old. I was like, wait a minute, a
Mm.
4-month-old in a domestic violence relationship? So I had to actually pull it up. The 4-month-old that I pulled up died because his father, shot and killed his mother, and also shot and killed him.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like you said, they're not just. It's not like I said when it escalated for our generation. It escalated now to where people are losing their lives, and it's just not between a husband and a wife and a boyfriend and a girlfriend. You have what they call family annihilators. The family annihilator kills everybody within the family.
Yeah. Yeah. They're taking out. They're taking out um everybody, innocent babies.
Yeah,
And people, and I get so frustrated when I hear people say, "Well, why don't she just leave?" Well, I know of a woman here. I live in the DC Maryland area. I know of a woman here. I think it was probably about maybe 8, 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. She left her husband. She had been gone for weeks, from what I understand. She worked at a cell phone store, and he tracked her down and went to her job. And she's at the counter in the cell phone store. Y'all excuse me, my allergies is acting up a little bit. So y'all, that's what y'all hearing. But he went to her job and he took some gasoline and threw it on her as she was working behind the counter. Everybody knew that he was her estranged husband. She had left him. He
Mm.
threw gasoline on her and lit a match and set her on fire in the store in front of people. She left him, and he still did what he did. I know this other young lady, I think it was probably about maybe 3 years ago, right here in Maryland. She left her, I think he was her boyfriend, and I think they had like two small children, and he was abusive, so she left him, and he followed her one day. And when she got out of her car, I think she was just getting home. He gunned her down right there in front of her children. So people, I get frustrated when I hear people, why don't she just leave? Well, even sometime when they leave, they still lose their life. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and and it goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Some people just don't have any place to go. And I
Yeah.
told a young lady probably about a year ago, you might have to leave your city when you leave if that's going to save your life and your children's life. You might have to leave home, leave your norm, even if it's just for 6 months, even if it's just for a year. If you got to move 4 states away to get away from him, to save your life and your children's life, then that's what we got to do. Because sometimes it's not even safe to leave in your city because they'll track you down. Some of them will.
Yeah, and that goes back to, whenever I go out and we advocate and stuff like that, and we talk about domestic violence. Once you know that you've been in a domestic violence, relationship, and you're ready to leave. Number one, have a plan to leave. Number two,
Mm-hmm.
be ready to leave that job that you have, because your
Mm-hmm.
job is not worth your life. Job is not worth your life. And then three, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to change. You're gonna have to change the way that you come and go, because stalking is part of domestic
You're gonna have
violence.
to get rid of that. Yeah.
Stalking is
Yeah.
part of
You're
domestic
gonna have to get
violence.
rid of that cell phone.
You have to get rid of that social
Yeah.
media.
You're probably gonna have to. You're probably gonna have to get rid of your cell phone. Especially if it's a plan that you and him got together. Um, especially if he knows your cell phone number, which 9 times out of 10 he does. You're probably going to have to get rid of your cell phone number. Like I said, you're probably going to have to move 2 or 3 states over because moving from one side of the town to the next side of town sometimes don't work. So you're going to probably have to change your whole life way of things that you're doing because if you don't, a stalker will stalk you and track you down. If you keep things the same, you
Yeah.
got to change the norm. You got to confuse them. Which means the friends that you and him have together, you might have to cut off those friends for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might have to move away from your family if you have family. Because they'll track you down through your family.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds so unfair as the victim. It's not fair, that we have to do all of this and turn our whole life upside down. But if it's going to save your life or your children's life, then that's exactly what you have to do. Because an abuser um, don't care. He's been turning your life upside down anyway, abusing you.
Right.
So he's really going to turn and try. He's really going to try to make it a living hell for you now that you're leaving, or he comes home and you left. Oh, he's really going to try to turn it upside down. But we got to go outside of the norm and just change up stuff, confuse them,
Yeah.
because it may be a life or death situation.
Once the abuse happens, I tell the people that it is a life and death situation. I mean, treat it as a life and death situation,
Yeah.
because you can never gauge on who's going to actually, once the abuse happens, or once any kind of abuse happens, on where they'll go to. Because I say this, once physical abuse happens, it only escalates from there. Or once the abuse happens, it only
Hmm.
escalates from there. So you can never gauge on what's going on in someone's mind. I'd rather act on the air of safety than anything else. And that once you find out that you've been abused, or that you want to leave, like I said, make a plan first. Be prepared to leave your job. Be prepared to leave your job, and also too, you know, think of it like I said, it's a life or death situation. You need to get as much distance as possible from the person that was abusing you.
Oh yeah,
So distance is okay.
absolutely.
And then two, if you have children, know that your children are going to be using you too.
Hmm.
So don't be tempted. Don't be
Always.
tempted by that. Your children are going to come to you and say to you that I want us to be back with daddy, or why is mommy not here, or stuff like that. Because once your abuser has access to your children, he has a second way to get in.
And children are always going to say, 9 times out of 10, especially our small children, they always going to say, well, why can't I go to my daddy's house? Or mommy, um, why can't my daddy come home? Or I miss my daddy. I want to see my daddy. And they're, because they're children and things have changed. But children will adapt quicker and better to change than adults will.
Yeah.
And I was that woman that was one of the reasons why, but that was the main reason why I went back after 10 months or so, because my second daughter, then she was the daddy's girl. I want my daddy. She was 2.5, 3 years old. You took my daddy. I want my daddy. So I go back. You know what I mean? And when I went back, I could have lost my life. So I tell people all the time, children, yes, they're gonna, for a while, probably a couple of months, I miss my daddy. I'm, why daddy can't go home. They're gonna go through all of that. They're gonna have all these questions. They're gonna do all of that. That's not a reason to go back,
No.
because children adapt. And what do you think is better for them? Them asking you all of this, I want to go back. Where's my daddy? I miss my daddy. Can I go to my daddy's house? Or seeing daddy beat your head in. That's that's not healthy. And for them, they'll grow up thinking that's the norm.
Right.
That's what it's supposed to be. So don't. I tell women all the time. I just had a conversation with somebody about this just a couple of days ago. Don't go back into that toxic situation, because it hasn't changed and it's gonna get worse. Don't go back into that because your baby is saying, I wanna go to my daddy's house. Yes, she's gonna love her daddy. He's gonna love his daddy. But that doesn't mean you're supposed to be with his daddy.
Right.
And eventually that violence that you see that he's doing to you, there's something eventually that one of those children going to do that's going to tick him off, and he's going to turn some of that violence onto one of those children.
Right.
Stay out of it. When God give you an out, when God open the door and He give you a way out, stay out. Your life depends on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, your life. Okay, what's the name of your book again, Dwayne?
So the name of my book is called The Ripple Effect: The Lasting Effects of Domestic Violence. It takes you through. I wrote it as a novice. I wrote it as someone who wanted to find out about domestic violence. So when I wrote it, I thought about when I first came into knowledge of domestic violence. How did I view it from a novice eyes? How did I see it? So it gives you different tactics. It gives you different ways of abuse affects everybody, and that's why it's called a ripple effect. So it breaks down, how it affects children, how it affects your community, how it affects your mental health. Um, it tells you what a domestic violence person looks like, or the characteristics, which I tell them that, characteristics of a narcissist or a narcissistic personality.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you,
Yeah.
I give you an example you know, of how to get out of a relationship. And I also tell you, how domestic violence is in, the things I talk about is, even though it doesn't
I think he
have
froze up a little.
physical abuse, it has a movie, and it's called Baby Boy. I thought Baby Boy during my time was a good movie. Looking at it through the eyes of an adult, I was like, this movie is horrible. I was like, this movie is awful. So I
Mm-hmm.
break down the Jody character in it, and I break down the character in Peter Pan. I talk about how Peter Pan was that kind of Jody character, where he was a baby boy. He, the Peter Pan character is a boy that never wants to grow up. So I dive into that. I talk about the real name of it's called Peter Pan syndrome. So it's a lot of things, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
different things that's in there. It's about it, and also too, you know, I give you access to um, an emergency plan.
Awesome.
So you can find my book on,
Awesome.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can look me up on, Facebook and Instagram if you want to be sent from me. So those are the places where you can find my book at.
I want you to put in the comment section when we get off all of that information,
Sure.
so people, as they're watching the video, they would be able to see all of that information on this live. Um, and I am definitely going to read the book starting tonight, because I'm intrigued. But this has been an amazing, amazing dialogue.
Thank you for having me on. Before I go, let me just, do you mind if I say a couple of shout outs?
Uh huh.
Sure. First person I want to shout out is Dion. Dion is actually how I got to you. So
Yeah.
Dion told me about you and stuff like that. So Dion is a good brother. His book, Failure is Not an Option. That's out there too on y'all. He's actually a
Yeah.
brother that I'm working with. We actually, think about doing a joint venture as far as mentoring, young men as far as domestic violence. We're also thinking about, doing a conference together with another gentleman. His name is Damien. He does a mental health program that he does with men who suffer not only domestic violence but just trauma in general. His name is Damien. He does the name of his program is called Men of Courage. I'm also
Okay.
a vice chair for a nonprofit called Survivors with the Testimony, and that's Vanita Hill. Um, she's actually the people that I work with and do advocacy with. We're out of North Carolina as well. But those are,
Okay.
the main people I want to shout out because being an advocate, I draw a lot of information and a lot of knowledge from a lot of people, and those are a lot of people that have helped me along this way too.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
Dion
just
is a
one more person.
powerhouse.
Just one more person.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, I've been married 4 times. I want to shout out my wife, Kay Hinnant. I would have never made it in
Uh-huh.
finishing the book if it wasn't for her.
I was waiting on that shout out. That's the shout out right there I was waiting for.
Yeah, she she
That's
she healed
awesome.
me.
That's
She
awesome.
healed me from my other marriages, and like I said, I would have never finished this book if it wasn't for her.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, I thank you. I thank you. And you're gonna have to come back again and tell us some other stuff that you got going on.
Oh, I'd love
Because
to.
I know you got a lot more to
Once
say.
you finish reading the book, tell me when you want to have me back on.
I will. I definitely will. Yeah, but I'm gonna start reading that tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This has been an amazing night.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it coming on, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
All right. Okay. As I see there's some comments on here, and I'm gonna respond to them once I get off. Thank you all for hanging out with us. That was an amazing dialogue. Next Tuesday night, I got an amazing guest coming on with me, Pastor Kimberly Green is going to be on next Tuesday night. So y'all go check out the YouTube channel, subscribe and like and share it. Um, so y'all tell somebody who can tell somebody who will tell somebody next Tuesday night. We're coming back here, same time, 7 p.m., same place. Y'all have a good night.